Hello, everybody. Welcome. And I just want to say thank you to Paige and to Yvonne for having me and Ron here today. What a wonderful organization. I'm so impressed with Vivillon, and I'm actually a junior senior. And I think Ron's a junior senior too. And I'm so excited to be, I've lived in Marin County for 31 years, and I think it's such a great place to live and a great place to age gracefully. And I totally want to be like Anna. My father was in finance and my mother was a geriatric nurse. She worked as a director of nursing in nursing homes, and then she worked in assisted living. So I kind of feel like being a reverse mortgage person really fits from my family history. I also, in my career, have helped first-time homebuyers a lot with down payment assistance. So that group of people needs a lot of education and guidance and patience, and I feel like senior homeowners need that too. So I help on both ends of the spectrum. So today we're going to talk about what a reverse mortgage is. We're going to talk about the myths and misconceptions, and I hear this all the time, things that people think about reverse mortgages. We're going to dispel those myths, and then we're going to talk about how seniors are using them. And this is one of my favorite parts, to tell reverse mortgage stories, because you're going to see how real people are changing their lives with reverse mortgages. So let's get started. Just a little bit more about me. I've been a lender for 21 years. I got my real estate license when I was 18 years old in Maryland. That's where I'm from. I had a radio show on Clear Channel AM 960 in San Francisco for a couple of years called Tea Time with Queen of the Loan. Ron has seen my music video. I have a music video called Queen of the Loan where I sing to the tune of King of the Road about being Queen of the Loan. And I've written custom songs for family and friends for like 30 years. So I thought, well, okay, it's time for a song for me. So also I've educated realtors in Marin for many years at the Marin Association of Realtors. So I love educating, and this reverse mortgage is really a topic that needs a lot of education. So I just want to briefly talk about Cross Country Mortgage. We are the #1 retail lender in the United States. 1 out of every 35 mortgage loans are made by us. We have a wonderful reverse mortgage division. We're direct authority with FHA, which means we don't have to get their permission to close a loan. We don't have to send our files to them. The people in our reverse mortgage division are so experienced and wonderful. Can't say enough positive about them. And our head of reverse mortgage lending is on the board of the National Reverse Mortgage Lending Association. And our head of credit is on the education committee. So, you know, we really have a lot of great people in our team. And I'm celebrating my 5th year at Cross Country Mortgage. So Cross Country Mortgage, we can help you all across the country. So I'm licensed in California, and I work with a team who are licensed in other states, which is great. Now, how many remember Charlie's Angels? Okay. No worries. So you might not know this, but what's his name? Charlie, after he was in Charlie's Angels, he retired and he became a mortgage lender. And I have Charlie with me today. Are you there, Charlie? Okay, hold on. Let me put you on speaker. Can you, are you there?
I sure am.
Okay, great. So Charlie is somebody I work with, and I've worked with him. And how many years have you been doing reverse mortgages, Charlie?
Reverse specifically for almost 8, but in the industry for 27.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on pause, Charlie, and when I want to bring you in for a question, I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me just say that that's really Patrick Ortiz, and he is my colleague, and he's wonderful, and he's down in Southern California, so I wanted to invite him virtually. Okay, let's get to it. Reverse mortgage is a general term. You might have heard the term HECM, which stands for Home Equity Conversion Mortgage, and that is the FHA insured reverse mortgage. So this This is a description of the purpose of a reverse mortgage, and it comes right out of the handbook, the FHA handbook, and it's or section 255 of the National Housing Act. The intent of the program is to provide elderly homeowners the option of using equity in their homes to address economic hardship caused by the increasing cost of health, housing, and subsistence needs at a time of reduced income. So another way to say that is use your home to stay at home, you know, when expenses are higher and income is lower. So a little bit about the history of reverse mortgages. The first reverse mortgage ever created was in 1961. There was a man at a bank whose high school coach died, and the widow of the coach said to him, I don't know how I'm gonna keep, you know, going here. I don't have enough money. So he created the reverse mortgage in order for her to be able to live. And that was way back in 1961. So then 1989, under Reagan, the first FHA insured home equity conversion mortgage happened. And then counseling came in 2001. You always have to be counseled before you get a reverse mortgage. And that is to protect you, to make sure you understand that that is your best option. You've looked at other options. You understand no one's like telling you you don't have to ever, you know, pay anything back. Although you don't have to make a payment on a reverse mortgage, and we'll get into that more in a little bit. So then in 2009, you could suddenly buy a home with a reverse mortgage, and that's a little hard to wrap your head around. But I'm going to give you a really great example of how somebody did that. And then in 2013, 2014, spousal protections came into place. And before that, if you had a spouse who wasn't on the mortgage and they passed away, or the spouse on the mortgage passed away and the one who wasn't on the mortgage was there, they'd either have to pay it back or sell the house. You can imagine that would be terrible, right? So that now non-borrowing spouses are protected. And then financial guidelines came in 2015. So that we could be sure that you can pay your property charges, your property tax and insurance when you get a reverse mortgage, since you don't have to make a payment. Can you imagine what might go wrong if you could get a lot of money and not qualify to pay your property tax and insurance? You know, it did go wrong for some people. So also they limited how much you can get in the first year to help, you know, not give a borrower all the money that they're eligible for right away. And then last year, there were a lot of changes to make purchases easier. We used to not be able to give, or there used to be no credits allowed from the seller or the builder. That came into being in 2024. And then this year, as every year, they increased the maximum loan amount. And this loan amount that you see on the screen, $1,209,750, for the FHA insured mortgage, that's not how much they'll give you. That's how much they don't want your balance to go beyond. So that's that. A little bit about the demographics. 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. 40% are still making monthly mortgage payments. 25% have no retirement savings. But the silver lining is, as of Q2 2024, they have 17 trillion in housing wealth. 50% of the nation's home equity is in housing from, you know, older people. So we know this in Marin, right? Anybody who's owned a home more than 10 years, 20 years, you know, it's just incredible how much equity we have. And I left on your chair the real estate report card, which I'm going to refer to, just to show you later, like how that looks over 63 years. So, okay, let's go into 101 reverse mortgage. What is a reverse mortgage? It allows homeowners to borrow against their home equity with no required monthly payment, as long as at least one of the borrowers remain in the home, or in the case of, you know, a non-borrowing spouse that I touched on before, they can, as long as one of them is still in the home. No payment is required. You can make a payment if you want, but it's not required. The mortgage, yeah, principal and interest payment is optional. The interest payment is optional. Everything's optional in terms of a payment. interest accrues over time, and the loan is repaid once your house is sold or refinanced, or the loan is paid off by your heirs. Funds can be received in a number of ways: a lump sum, or you can get monthly payments for a period of time or for your lifetime, or a combination. But the most exciting part of the FHA insured home equity conversion mortgage to me is the growing line of credit. And this can be a little hard to wrap your head around, but I've got some graphs to show you. So if you had a $400,000 home equity line of credit, or a HECM, and you don't use that 400,000, it grows. It just grows and grows and grows and grows. So you have access to more money. And unlike a home equity line of credit, it can never be shut down. So did anybody have a home equity line of credit back in the implosion where your bank said, oh, sorry, you can't use this anymore? Yeah, that can't happen. So with the FHA one, the funds are tax-free, right, Ron?
Yes, they are.
Okay, yeah. So the funds are tax-free, and it's easier to qualify for than a regular mortgage because you don't have to qualify for that principal and interest payment. You just have to qualify to make your property tax and insurance, and there are different ways that we can do that or help you qualify for that. So here are top 10 happy reasons for a reverse mortgage, what to do with a reverse mortgage. You can buy a home. If you are downsizing and you're thinking about, I'm going to sell my home and pay cash because I don't want a mortgage payment, you can downsize with the reverse mortgage and keep more of that cash, right? You can right size. Let's say you sold your home and you had $1 million, and you're looking at properties to replace your home, and the thing you really like is 1.2, and you only have $1 million. Well, you can do this with a reverse mortgage and not have a payment. You can buy a vacation home. In fact, if you want to move to Portugal, or I'm sorry, not move, if you want a vacation home in Portugal, Ron and I have a good friend who sells real estate to Americans in Portugal. She is from Marin, was born in Mill Valley. And anyway, you can buy a vacation home. You can travel, enjoy your retirement years, build an accessory dwelling unit. You can buy an RV, a boat, or you can buy a van and go to Burning Man. Remodel or upgrade your home, make your home safer to live in as you age. You can help pay for grandchildren's college, buy a new car, or help your adult child with a down payment on a home. So, are you eligible? For the FHA insured product, you must be 62 years or older. You must own your own home and live in it as a primary residence. You must be able to keep up with your property tax and insurance payments and maintain your property, and have sufficient home equity, typically 40 to 70% of the house value. Well, I'll get to this. What kind of properties are eligible? Single family homes, including single family with an ADU, condos meeting certain requirements, planned unit development PUDs, 2 to 4 family homes, as long as it's owner occupied. So if you live in a duplex or you live in a fourplex, you qualify, or your property qualifies. And manufactured homes meeting certain HUD guidelines, including they have to be over 400 feet and built after 1976. So as I mentioned, there are flexible funding options available with this home equity conversion mortgage: lump sum, growing line of credit, fixed monthly advances, a combination for purchase of home. And if you have a mortgage, a home equity conversion mortgage, you can draw on it, you can pay it back, you can draw on it, you can pay it back. There's no limit to the amount of time you can do that. You just don't want to pay the whole thing off because they'll shut it down. You want that line of credit. So if you do get a HECM, remember that. That's very important. Do not pay the whole thing off. So how is the loan amount determined? This is one of the areas in life where it pays to be older. The older you are, the better. So it's based on the age of the youngest borrower, the property value, and the current loan interest rate. And the FHA product is really designed to preserve home equity. And I'm going to show you how that works with one of my examples. So let's bust some myths. I heard the first two of these yesterday. I was in my car talking to this lady, and she said, but will the bank own my home? And can they kick me out? And I said, no, those are misconceptions. So with a reverse mortgage, it's a loan. You retain ownership of the home with your name on the title. The loan is secured by the home, just like any other mortgage, and you're still responsible for the property, and you can live there as long as you maintain the property and pay the property tax and insurance. You can remain in your home as long as you do that, and if you fail to do that, the loan could become due, but this applies to any mortgage if you're not paying your property tax and insurance. However, with reverse mortgages, there's special hardship counseling available to people in that situation. And also, there is something called a life expectancy set aside, which I'll show you in one of the examples. And that's where we will set aside out of your line of credit your property tax and insurance for your life expectancy. And then there's the idea that it's only for people who are in financial trouble. And some people, financial planners and tax preparers and CPAs, are becoming aware of the power of a reverse mortgage to help you with tax strategies or things like delaying your Social Security. So if you have to liquidate an asset and it's going to cause a tax event for you, with a reverse mortgage home equity line or HECM, you can draw on your HECM and not have to do that, right? Do you want to speak to that at all, Ron, or wait till you get up? Okay. But yeah, so they're seeing how powerful that could be. Okay, you cannot leave your home to your heirs. That's another myth. Heirs still inherit the home, but as I mentioned before, they pay off the reverse mortgage. If they have the cash, they can do that. They can refinance to pay it off, or they sell the home, and whatever is left in equity after the home sells and the mortgage is paid off, that goes to your heirs. Too expensive and have hidden fees. They do have higher upfront costs compared to traditional loans, and most of the fees can be financed into the loan. Reducing your out-of-pocket expenses. The rates and fees vary based on the current interest rates, the home value, and the age, as I mentioned. So two things about the fees. One, the FHA home equity conversion mortgage has mortgage insurance, and it's 2% of, if your home is worth $1,209,000, it's 2% of that, or whatever. If your home is worth less, it's 2% of that. But what I mentioned, that it can never be shut down and then it just keeps growing, that insurance pays for that coverage. So to me, it's worthwhile, and also the lender doesn't get the interest is not paid to the lender, could be 10, 20, 30 years. So they do have to front load some of the expenses on a reverse mortgage, if that makes sense. Because when you get a regular, what we call a forward mortgage, you're paying interest right away. And with a reverse mortgage, you're deferring that. Won't qualify if you still have existing mortgage debt. So that's not true. We pay off first mortgages all the time. And they're federally regulated and insured. The HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, administers the program. FHA insures the program. We have a trade organization I mentioned. We call it NRMLA, the National Reverse Mortgage Association. That's the voice of the industry. We have ethical standards that we abide by. And then the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau comes into mortgage companies and they audit them to make sure that everybody's following the rules, and they have protections for folks. So here are some of the ways you're protected. Reverse mortgages are non-recourse loans, so you'll never owe more than the appraised value of the home at time of repayment. So I really strongly feel it's unlikely to become underwater with a reverse mortgage. today, the FHA HECM especially. And the reason I feel that is because the inventory is historically low. You've got 66 million millennials forming households. So it's just supply and demand. And, you know, I don't see what happened in 2007, 2008 happening anytime soon. So, and then mortgage insurance, as I mentioned, guarantees that protection, the non-recourse, and ensures that those payments will always happen for you. The payments you elect to receive or the line of credit that you want to draw on. Counseling is required for all applicants. You can't spend any money until you have been counseled. And counseling typically costs about $100 to $200. And it's provided by HUD, AARP, and other reputable organizations. And for loans with an adjustable interest rate, there's a limit on how much some rates can change during the period. It's usually 5% on the HECM. And then borrowers receive a good faith estimate that will disclose the costs and fees up front. And non-borrowing spouse protections, I mentioned, if the borrowing spouse passes away and moves out, the non-borrowing spouse can remain in the home. They just have to be able to keep the property charges paid, just like when the borrowing spouse was alive. They would not be able to access the line of credit after the borrowing spouse passes, though. So here are some problems a reverse mortgage can solve. Meeting expenses when there's not enough cash flow in retirement. Aren't we, we've all experienced the pinch of inflation. I mean, every time I go to the store or the gas pump, I just go, and my auto insurance has gone up. It's like, wow. So this is a good use of the product. Pay off your current mortgage, eliminate your mortgage payment, pay off a home equity line of credit. You know, home equity line of credits, the way they work is the first 10 years you have access to the money. And then after that, no more access, and you have to pay it back over a 20-year term. So your payment can go up. So you can pay that off with a reverse mortgage. You can consolidate debt. The average credit card rate, I can't believe it, is 28.93%. I got something in the mail from TJ Maxx recently. I think it was 32%. I just went, did you get that too? I got it in the mail and I just said, okay, no. I called them up and said, yeah, I'm done. It should be illegal, honestly. But to fund in-home care, to age in place, pay for assisted living for a spouse or partner, pay for a large unexpected expense like a new roof, medical bills, replace an automobile, get caught up on delinquent mortgage payments or property taxes. So if you have a life event that puts you into, getting behind on things, and we still can help you. We've actually helped people come out of foreclosure with reverse mortgages. So don't think that if you're in a bind that you're not going to qualify. Always talk to a reverse mortgage professional to make sure that you know whether you can or not. And especially if you have recovered from that incident, it has to make sense. A reverse mortgage, it has to be something that's a benefit to you and puts you in a better financial situation. Can't be like a short-term Band-Aid. Delay starting Social Security benefits. I already mentioned that. Pay for a divorce buyout. I've got a client right now working on that. Replace monthly income lost after spouse passes away. Replace monthly income due to an unexpected job loss. Allow retirement assets to recover in a down market. So if you're newly retired and the market is down, it's really going to hurt your portfolio and your lifetime retirement benefit if you have to tap into that when the market is down at the beginning. So a home equity conversion mortgage with that line of credit can enable you to put that off and let the market recover. So, and then access funds if waiting for a legal settlement. Ron and I have a good friend who is, we call him the GOAT. He specializes in traumatic brain injury law. He represents people who've had traumatic brain injuries. And sometimes those folks have to wait a long time for a legal settlement. So I hope you don't ever know anybody in that situation, but if you do, He was a CHP policeman, then an accident reconstruction specialist, then he went to law school, and he's really amazing. So who should not get a reverse mortgage? Somebody who plans to sell their home very soon, in a couple years, because you've got a large upfront cost, and it's not that it's out of your pocket, but you don't want to be spending that money if you're going to sell your home very soon. Someone for whom a reverse mortgage does not create a sustainable solution should not get one. Someone who can depend on family or friends for financial support, find another way to meet expenses. I had a dear friend who wanted to get a reverse mortgage because she was just a little shy every month, and she liked to travel. Shy on her, meeting her expenses. She liked to travel, and her daughter and son-in-law said, "Mom, we'll just pay off your mortgage, and you'll have an extra $1,000 a month." And that was a solution for her. So, and then someone for whom a forward mortgage or a regular mortgage or a home equity line is a better solution. So there's a gentleman named Wade Pfau. He is a PhD from Princeton, and he is the retirement researcher, and he researches every retirement vehicle in depth. He's an uber nerd, and he's really smart, and he loves reverse mortgages. He loves the HECM, the home equity conversion mortgage. He loves the growing line of credit. And here's a quote from him: "In isolation, a reverse mortgage can look expensive, but it should not be viewed in isolation. It's a piece of a larger puzzle that retirees are trying to solve. Reverse mortgage costs can be offset by gains elsewhere in the overall financial plan." So he has a book that he has written. If you are a very sophisticated financial wizard, I'm saying that because it's very, very technical. I also have some other books I recommend that I'll put out afterwards if you want to, do some research on your own. These books are much more accessible and understandable than Mr. Pfau, but he's a very impressive person. Okay, on your chair there was the real estate report card, and I like showing this to folks because it shows you the median price home in Marin County and the appreciation rate going back 63 years. Last year, I could say that was as old as me. So 63 years, the median price home has gone up 5.76% per year. That is really great. And one of the reasons I bring it up is because when you see a proposal with the FHA home equity conversion mortgage, they use 4% as a rule of thumb. So I like to run the numbers I'll be conservative and just go to 5% because I want to be conservative, but I want to be realistic too, because I feel like, the numbers don't lie. We do have great appreciation here. Okay, I think this is the only slide I'm going to show you with a lot of numbers, I promise. But this is how I want to illustrate the difference between a home equity line of credit, or a HELOC, which you'll see on the left, and a home equity conversion mortgage. So this is the HELOC, and this is the home equity conversion mortgage. And in this case, the home is worth $2 million, and the HELOC interest rate is 9.4. They're borrowing $200,000. They're going to draw $120,000 right away, and they're 75 years old. And that payment on the HELOC to pay it off in 15 years is $1,245.54. So the blue is the home value and how it's going to go up, and we're using 5%. And the orange is the loan balance. And the green over here is the line of credit. So as I mentioned before, my favorite feature of this FHA insured home equity conversion mortgage is this growing line of credit. So if you qualified for, under option 2, $464,544, this is how much this 75-year-old qualifies for a reverse mortgage. This is the cost that they are going to put on the reverse mortgage. This is their draw, and in this case, they don't have a mortgage. And I want you to see how it grows. Let me get back here so I can read. Initially, the line of credit is $310,112. If rates stay about the same as they are, in 5 years, the equity available through that line of credit is $447,893. In 10 years, it could be worth $646,890, and in 15 years, almost $1 million, $934,300. So you could see how this is really powerful for you to have this as a senior person. Maybe you just need $500 a month extra money to make your, pay your bills. Maybe you need $1,000 or $2,000. If you use this mortgage to help you with your cash flow, you can still have this line that grows. And the way it grows is kind of amazing. And then in this example, I just plugged in a $1,000 payment on the home equity conversion mortgage, just to show you what the line would look like if you decided to make a payment. If you decide to make a payment, or if you have adult children you want to leave equity to and you want to make a payment so it doesn't grow that much, you've got the options, which is really nice. Now we're going to tell some stories, my favorite part. Okay, here is an East Bay homeowner I helped. She was turned down by the bank for a home equity line of credit. She's 70 years old. She had about $8,000 to her name. Her home was worth 1.4. She had a $170,000 mortgage, and her monthly payment was $1,772 per month. And that included principal, interest, tax, and insurance. Her income consisted of Social Security, $1,320, and dog sitting. We got her a new reverse mortgage, and her initial borrowing power before she paid off the loan was $438,000. We paid off her loan, her mortgage, her first mortgage, and we set aside, because her payment included property tax and insurance, I said, would you like us to set aside the money to pay your property tax and insurance for your lifetime? And she said yes. So that's $98,322. Closing costs were around $31,000, and that left her with a line of credit of $138,000. So her goal was not to tap into that line of credit. And I spoke to her yesterday, and the other thing that she did was, when you get an FHA home equity conversion mortgage, I'm going to come over and look at your house, and I walked around and I looked inside and outside, because the FHA wants you to have a safe home, and they may require some things to be repaired before closing or after closing. So she had like a water runoff valve in the basement that wasn't flowing outside. That had to be done before closing. But there was some chipped and peeling paint on the outside of her house. And I said, they're probably going to require you to set aside money. It's called a repair set aside to fix that. So she sent me a picture. I didn't get it in here in time, but of the new paint job. This is the old paint job. And her house looks beautiful. And I spoke to her yesterday, and she said, I'm so happy. I've got my dogs that I sit. I've got my friend living upstairs renting, and I've got my growing line of credit and no mortgage payment. And her situation is so much improved from before she got this product. So she's a really good example of how we can help. Now, Ron introduced me to somebody, one of his clients in San Rafael. And Ron, you can see I'm using a different picture to protect her privacy, because we are in San Rafael. She was a young senior at 64, and her home value was $3.1 million. And she didn't have any mortgage, but she built an ADU. She really built a nice ADU, a 2-bedroom ADU on top of a garage. And she built that for her granddaughter. But have you ever built something and it cost more than you thought it was going to cost? Have you ever built something that cost less? Yeah, no. So she actually depleted her reserves, and that's scary. And she wasn't working. So Ron introduced her to me, and I showed her how she could take care of her problem with this is a jumbo reverse mortgage. So it wasn't the home equity conversion mortgage because she needed more money. And she was able to access $1 million. She took $275,000 cash at closing, which left her a line of credit of $692,437. It cost her about $25,000, and that's part of the mortgage. She didn't have to come out of pocket with that money. So the jumbo has a less exciting line of credit growth rate. It grows at 1.5% per year, and you have access to it for 7 years. Sorry, it grows for 7 years. You have access to it for 10 years. So she's got this line of credit. Now she has a runway. She can, get a job. She can decide what she wants to do with the ADU, or she could even move into the ADU and rent out her house, but her granddaughter's living in the ADU, so that's probably not going to happen. But she's got some breathing room, right? Where before she spent all the money and she didn't want to sell her house. So she is very happy too. Let's see if I left anything off there. Oh, and her equity in year 7, based on a 5% appreciation rate, I think we're being conservative here, is 3.6 million. And her home value would be worth 4.3. So she replenished her reserves, established a line of credit, no mortgage payment. Property, we paid the property tax installment, the upcoming one at closing. She's still responsible for her property tax and insurance. She's able to defer taking Social Security. She's got monthly income from the ADU. And she increased her property value by building that. So you can buy with a reverse mortgage. And I have a really wonderful example to tell you about. You can put down less than 100% of the purchase price, as I mentioned. A buyer provides a one-time contribution to the purchase price plus closing costs. And compared to all cash, you retain more of your cash, because you're not putting all your cash into a property. And again, no mandatory monthly payments of principal and interest. So here's a widow who went from renter to homeowner, and she bought her condo with a reverse mortgage. She's 79, and this is not her. But I use this picture because she has a cute little dog. So she's 79, and her income was from Social Security, $2,300 a month. Her monthly rent was $2,200, which was 95.7% of her income. So you can imagine she was drawing on her savings. After her husband died, she sold the home, she became a renter, and she had this $719,000 in savings. But the condo owner said, "Hey, I'm going to sell. You got to be out in 30 days or buy it. You want to buy it? It's $550,000. So she thought about it, and she thought, well, I could pay $550,000, but then I'd only have $169,000 left over, and that was kind of scary. So luckily, her daughter knew something about reverse mortgages and referred her to us, and she was able to buy with a reverse mortgage. She only had to bring in $336,000. So now her savings balance was $383,000 versus the $169,000 if she had just paid cash. But it gets better because her property charges, that's her HOA, property tax, and insurance, is only $955 a month versus the $2,200 she was paying in rent. Now her housing percentage debt to income ratio is 43.3% of her total income goes to her housing. Much more sustainable. And she's got $1,345 more in cash flow versus $100 in cash flow per month. So she went from renter to homeowner, increased her cash flow. She'll never be displaced. Nobody can say, hey, you got to move out. I'm selling this place, or my daughter's moving in. and she preserved her savings. Isn't that a great story? Okay, here's another one. We have a client whose daughter wants to buy a home, but the mortgage payment is not comfortable. Can you imagine mortgage payment not comfortable today in the Bay Area? So mom and dad own 2 homes, free and clear, without a mortgage, and they're both 80 years young. So the mom and dad can take a reverse mortgage, and this is what they're doing, on their home, helping their daughter with the down payment. So instead of the daughter getting a $650,000 loan with a mortgage payment of $4,300 a month, with mom's gift, she is making a more comfortable $2,859 mortgage payment. So, so that's great. And mom and dad are taking an additional $150,000 for themselves. And the payment is optional, right? So obviously in that case, there's some estate planning issues, like they have 2 daughters. So I refer them to an estate planning attorney because, they have to figure out how they're going to make it fair when they pass on. But she really wanted her daughter to become a homeowner sooner than later. Okay, how many of you have a mortgage rate, a first mortgage rate under 4%? Yeah, me too. So we created a product, not we, but investors created a product that would address folks who didn't want to get rid of that first mortgage that is very small in interest rate. It's a standalone reverse mortgage second. So here's an example. Borrower is 65 years young, wife is 72. She has rheumatoid arthritis, and she needs aqua therapy to improve the quality of her life. The home's worth about $1 million, has a $428,000 mortgage, and she's eligible, or they're eligible, for $148,000. Fixed first mortgage that goes behind the existing first mortgage. The interest rate on it is 9.49%. And by the way, if they elect to take less than they're eligible for, they can get a lower interest rate. But it's comparable to home equity line rates, and that's one lump sum at closing. So they were able to pay off some debt, build a pool, and increase their home value. And so for the reverse mortgage second, you remember the home equity conversion mortgage, you have to be 62. For this one, you need to be only 55 or older. Minimum loan amount $50,000. You can get up to $1 million. No mortgage insurance. It's still non-recourse. It's not a line of credit. Single draw. Payments are optional. Must be counseled. Must be primary residence, and similar property types to the HECM. So what is the cost for a senior of not taking action when they have an option like this available to them? Maybe being unable to pay for your housing charges, risking foreclosure, being unable to travel to see family or friends, having to drive an unreliable vehicle, the emotional and physical toll of financial stress, relying on adult children to help meet expenses, having to work beyond retirement age, the inability to afford healthy food, delaying medical care and risking a more serious disease or condition, inability to keep up with inflation, where accounts like Social Security or retirement fall short, and being uprooted to move in with family and friends. Just to tell you what my award was, when I worked for a mortgage startup in San Francisco, they created a 10 of 10 award for me because that year all my clients gave me 10 out of 10. And I'm really proud of that because I worked hard and I just really like to take good care of people. 20 plus years providing mortgages, and I can help you across the country. I also make handmade soaps as closing gifts. So my mom got me into that. It's called melt and pour soap making. And I love to present that. And sometimes people say, well, those are too pretty to use. And I say, well, just rub from the bottom. Yeah, and if any of you want to explore this option and see if it works for you, I would be happy to help you. And on your chair, there should be also a little flyer about cross country and how we have so many other loan options. If you go to the bank for a home equity line, you might get turned down and think, oh no, what am I going to do? If you go to a company that only does reverse mortgages, you might not know about an option that might work better for you. But at Cross Country, we have many, many options. And so that is it for me. This is Charlie, just Patrick Ortiz. I wanted to give you his, to show you who he really is. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them, or we could talk to Ron and then we can take them all at once. Is there any burning questions that you have? Right there.
Clarification, because you said your particular reverse mortgage is an FHA partnership or insert. Yeah. Is that true or not true for all reverse mortgages?
Good question. So it is not true for all reverse mortgages, but they all are non-recourse loans. So you can never owe more than your home is worth. Any other questions?
Does the ADU loan have to be for an ADU on your home or your reverse mortgage property, or can it be on another property you own?
So you mean if you want to build an ADU? So you can take cash out of other properties to build an ADU. You don't have to take it out of your primary home, even if you want to build it on your primary residence. Does that answer your question?
I think she wanted to see if she could get the funding, but then build the ADU on different property.
Oh, yes, you could do that. Yeah, because when you get the funding from a reverse mortgage, you can do whatever you want with it. There's on the application, they ask you if you intend to buy a financial product, because they really discourage that. But yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. Any other questions? There's one back there.
Hello. I am the trustee of an estate, and the person that passed away has a reverse mortgage. What is the time involved before they could come in and foreclose on the home?
So you notify the servicer right away when somebody passes away, and they have 6 months. You have 6 months. But if you prepared the home, you put it on the market, and you need more time, you can get extensions, 2-3 month extensions. Just have to be in touch with the servicer, show them, hey, look, I've got it on the market. This is what we're doing. So you do have time. Great questions. All right, well, I'm going to introduce Mr. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Another question.
With the problem with insurance companies going out of business or refusing to insure folks in a certain bad area that's fire prone. And it seems that it was required in your presentation many times. It came up.
Yeah.
Do you help handle that?
So we have good insurance agents that we work with, that we refer to folks, but that's a problem no matter what kind of mortgage that you have. It's kind of it's an issue. And depending on where you live, it's more of an issue or less of an issue. And obviously with the fires in LA, I think, we can count on our rates going up again. But yeah, you do have to have insurance. And there is California Fair Plan, which is like the backup insurance. So you do have to have insurance on your home to get a reverse mortgage, just like a regular mortgage. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we're going to bring up Mr. Ron Moss, and Ron is a CPA and an attorney. And he's been a CPA for 45 years. He is also a junior senior, right, Ron? And he has an adorable 19-month-old granddaughter. So,
Thank you. Here's a little bit about my bio. I have been at this for a while. I've worked in Marin County now for over 30 years. I started out working in the city. I worked down the peninsula a little while. I have 3 kids. I'm lucky they're still in the Bay Area, or maybe unlucky. I don't know. I do get to see them. I have 1 little granddaughter. Everyone told me that having a grandchild will change my life. I said, how is it going to change my life? It's amazing. And I'm sure all you pros here know that. I'm not going to make a lot of money at it, but so many people ask me questions about their taxes, and I love explaining it to people. I love explaining taxes because taxes, let's face it, are a big part of our expenses. Maybe our number one expense, how much we pay Uncle Sam. I mean, back in 1916, when the Tax Act passed, it was advertised as, I enjoy my privilege to pay taxes. I don't think anyone would say that now. I live in gratitude. It's a new thing for me. How many people in this room know if I told you I shook hands with the only unelected president of the United States? Does anybody know who that is? Yes, who said that? Very good. You know history. Here's a picture of me. I had a lot more hair. I went to my high school reunion. I graduated high school in Michigan in 1975. This is my daughter and my significant other and my little 19-year-old granddaughter. Her name is Ayla. I don't know if you, my significant other, Nancy's her name. Her son moved to a farm up in Oregon. And this is the coolest vehicle I've ever seen. They're called a Gator. They just go everywhere. It's like a little golf cart. I mean, I just got to get one of these. I just don't have anywhere I can use it. This is Ayla. This is me and Ayla. Me and Ayla again. I sit in the sandbox. I don't even have my cell phone with me. It is such good mental therapy. This is my youngest daughter. I still ski or try to ski. This is my grand dog. And what I'm here to talk about, this is a really hard topic. We just had an election. When Mr. Trump came in office the first time, Congress passed and he signed a bill called the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. The key to this bill is, in order to get it by the Budget Committee, is it expires at the end of 2025. So I'm going to address what the law is today. And I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what there is. I heard Congress say we aren't going to put through a global tax legislation like we did before, but there are ramifications when this law expires. Generally speaking, the law cost about $4 trillion during the 10 years it's been in effect, and it's a temporary measure. But we know Mr. Trump hates estate tax. We know Mr. Trump was a real estate man. We know Mr. Trump there's a lot of things he likes and doesn't like. Will Congress go that way? We do have a Republican Congress, barely. Republican Senate, a little better than barely, 53 to 47. We don't know. You don't want to watch law. You don't want to watch sausages being made. You don't want to watch taxes being made. I'll correct myself. It was the 10-year cost estimate of the bill was about 1.9 trillion, making it permanent. If they just decide we'll make the law extend it, it would cost about 400 billion a year. Now remember, 1.9 trillion sounds like a lot of money, but COVID alone, the United States spent, in those 2 years of COVID, 2021, we spent $12 trillion in deficit additions during COVID. So up to you. So what happens? The tax rules revert back to the law as it was prior to 2017. For many in this room, including me, in the big tax states, New York, Massachusetts, California, state taxes made up a significant deduction, and my property taxes are a significant deduction to me. One of the things the 2017 law did is it limited state and local taxes to $10,000, which almost eliminates the ability for us to itemize. If it expires, state and local taxes will become deductible again, up to the max. AMT will become a significant factor. Probably won't affect a lot of people in this room. The reason most of us can't itemize is the standard deduction for a married couple went up to $29,600. If we don't have a mortgage and we don't have income taxes and we don't give a ton to charity, it's likely we don't itemize. That's pretty valuable, 29.6 and 14.6 standard deduction for a single individual. If the law expires at the end of this year with no action by Congress, the standard deduction will drop to $7,300 and the married deduction will go down to 14.8, and we'll be able to deduct state and local income taxes again. Tax bracket shift, I'll go over that in a little more detail. It's not really that interesting. It just means our brackets will go down and more of our income, and we'll pay a higher rate on more income. Mortgage interest. One of the agreements in the tax bill was you can only borrow up to $750,000 on a house. That'll go back to $1 million. What will the new bill do? I don't know. I don't know what Congress is going to agree to. Miscellaneous deductions. We used to be able to deduct my tax preparation fees, advisory fees on our investment accounts, other miscellaneous deductions, home office expenses. Those are no longer allowed. Miscellaneous deductions for federal taxes have disappeared. Still allowed for California, but they've disappeared for that. The state tax limit. Right now, it's over $13.6 million for a single person. Almost 26 million if you're married. Very few of us will be affected by estate taxes, but that will drop to half of that. It'll drop to 6.8. One of the theories if Harris was elected is they would bring it down to 6 million or 5 million. We don't know what's going to happen. This is a little bit more in the brackets. Basically, the 37% marginal rate hits at incomes over $695,000. I hope many people in this room are affected by that. After, if the max rate will go to 39.6 if a new legislation isn't passed. Again, one thing we do seem to know is Mr. Trump doesn't like taxes, and he is a real estate man. This a little more in the standard deduction that I talked about. Again, we talked about the itemized deduction for state and local mortgage interest. Under the old law, you could borrow up to $1 million on your home. Under the law for the last 9 years, only $750,000. Reverse mortgages don't affect it because there's no, in general, a reverse. Mary Ann showed us some of the beauty of a reverse mortgage. One thing, when you put that into effect and take out that hunk of money, your ability to borrow continues to grow. You still have a leveraged investment. We saw an example in the Peacock Gap home. The woman who built an ADU, her home was estimated to be worth $4 million. Yeah, her debt grew, but it was a highly leveraged investment. So the amount of money she will have in 10 years from the equity in her home increased dramatically because she built that ADU, and it continues to increase because it's leveraged. Buying stock, buying bonds, those are not generally leveraged investments. My mortgage rate is 2.6%. I feel very lucky. Am I trying to pay that off? Absolutely not. I definitely don't want to pay that off right now. Again, we talked about other miscellaneous deductions. Those will come back. They're subject to 2%. I call it a haircut. But that was a very, accounting fees, estate planning fees, home office expenses, job hunting expenses. A lot of things fall into that area. One of the other things, do we hand out the stacking of deductions for the reverse mortgage? I can't remember. One of the things, it's a little technical, but one of the advantages using our mutual client who borrowed for building the ADU, now she has a lot more, she has a cash savings. Rather than taking out of your IRA or taking cashing in Microsoft stock from 15 years, 20 years ago, when you have medical expenses, they'll become deductible because your income is lower. If your income's really high, your medical expenses might not be deductible. But Powerball is over $300 million today. And, I guess you won't worry about it if you win tonight. So I mean, I think I'll try buy a ticket. We talked briefly about one of the most common questions I get is, will my estate be taxable? Well, very few of us have an estate, if you're single, of $13.6 million, which gets indexed for inflation. You can also go give gifts to your children and others of up to $13.6 million while you're alive. None of it will be taxable. You do have to file a gift tax return, but there is no gift tax until you go over that $13.6 million. So it doesn't really affect a lot of us. Politically, it seems like the conservatives, the people against the state tax are saying it will destroy family farms. Not many family farms are worth $26.8 million for a couple, but, they're couching it in terms of that and trying to get rid of the estate tax. The estate tax does not make the U.S. government a lot of money. My biggest concern, and I know we have other grandparents in this room, is my granddaughter, if I live long enough, when she's in her 20s or 30s, with this, and this is political, with the way we're increasing our deficits, she's going to say to me, what the hell did you do? Because I really think what our generation is doing to the environment, what our generation is doing with these deficits, sooner or later, the government may want to pay some of their bills. It works out great for all of us in this room right now, but sooner or later, we may want to pay our bills. Another change, if you're fortunate enough to own stock outside an IRA, qualified dividends, which are Microsoft dividends, Apple dividends, any dividend of a qualified corporation, they're only taxed at a maximum of 15%. If they don't fix this, they'll go back up to ordinary income rates. You won't have that break for qualified dividends. Again, I wish I could tell you what they're going to do, but I think they've only had one Senate hearing for one member of his cabinet so far. So we'll see how fast that moves and what laws they pass. And there's only, a 3-seat majority in Congress and a 3-seat majority in the Senate. So we'll see what they're able to pass. One of the big things being discussed is this qualified business income thing. If you own real estate, I'm a CPA, I'm a sole proprietor. Whatever I make, I get a credit. So if I make $100,000 in my CPA practice, I get a credit, an adjustment to my income of 20%, the qualified business income deduction. So in effect, I record $100,000 income, but I get a $20,000 adjustment, bringing my income down to $80,000. Same with rental real estate. You get a 20% credit. And the reasoning behind this was that corporations pay a lower tax rate than individuals. How can we make it so it levels the playing field? And that was the idea of what we call the QBI, qualified business income tax. And Congress is very sensitive to this. If the QBI expires, many people are theorizing that many of us will change our entities to be corporations, so we're only taxed at a lower rate. We'll see what happens. But this is something that does expire, and we'll see what happens. Meals and entertainment, the current law says 50% starting in January 20. There were a couple years during COVID that you could deduct 100% of your meals and entertainment. We're back to 50%, which is in line with what will happen if the law expires. Entertainment is not deductible at all. Taking someone to a Giants game or to play, I can't deduct entertainment. I would say I'm taking him to a meal. The Giants game was just something that was going on. Will that pass muster? I don't know. I went to almost all the 49er home games today. This season, I probably shouldn't have. It wasn't really a good team, but that would not pass muster. Net operating costs, under the current law, you can only carry them forward. That would include real estate losses if they qualify, losses from business, any net operating loss. If the law doesn't pass, you're going to be forced to carry them back 2 years, then carry them forward. Why is that important? Well, a lot of times when you carry back a loss to 2 years prior, you're in a lower tax bracket and you might not want to use it. Depreciation, right now we have 100% bonus depreciation on up to $2.5 million. Very valuable for construction companies, very, very valuable in a lot of, to be able to buy a piece of equipment for up to $2.5 million and take the whole deduction year one is really valuable. If that doesn't pass, it drops to 50% and down to $500,000. Again, we don't want to watch laws being made, but we'll see what Congress does. One of the things a lot of us are sensitive to and thinking about, does anybody here own an electric vehicle yet? You do. What do you have? Oh, you have the ID4 and you love it? Now, they're supposed to be really fun to drive. And we see that Mr. Musk is really good friends with Mr. Trump. He seems against it. We don't know, is he going to get, there was a lot of talk that in 2020, so right now the law is if I buy a qualified electric vehicle, which means most of it is made in North America or sourced in North America, I get up to a $7,500 credit. So a $40,000 Tesla, I don't know if they exist, would only cost me $32,500. But the Biden administration, when the law passed, they made it pretty tough because of that sourcing in North America. There's a form, if you're thinking of buying an electric vehicle, make sure the dealer gives you this form 15,400, because then you for sure qualify. Another thing that happened starting in 2024 was when you go to the dealer to buy that Tesla, it used to be you pay again, we'll use the $50,000 example. You paid $50,000, then in your tax return, you got a $7,500 credit. Starting in 24, the dealer could say, okay, you're giving me 50, I'll give you the credit in advance. So now your car is only $42,500. Pretty valuable thing. But there are other things you got to do to qualify. For a single person, you can't make more than $150,000 taxable income. If I do make more than that, the government's going to claw back that credit that my dealer gave me. Or for a married couple, you can't make more than $300,000. But if I were to give economic advice, if you can get that advance credit, get it as long as you qualify. If you're going to have a big taxable year, don't. Maybe if you're going to buy that vehicle and you're going to have to get some other income, maybe it's a good time to get a reverse mortgage so that you keep your income low in that year you're buying the electric vehicle. So they were real popular. I don't know how many of you drive south when you go by the Tesla lot. I noticed this week, every time I drove by there, it was packed with cars because almost all the Teslas qualify. This last 2 weeks, it seemed pretty empty. So a lot of people, my CPA interpretation is a lot of people must have decided I better buy it before they pass a law. Can Congress or the president sign a bill that makes a law retroactive? Absolutely. I mean, they've done it before, and I wouldn't be surprised not making a political comment, I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. It seems to me, I guess the 10 wealthiest people in the United States have 50% of the income and the rest of us, so do they care? They drink the same amount of milk, use the same amount of eggs. So I don't know. It's a strange system. One of the new things that happened in 24 and is still around is the used electric vehicle credit, up to $4,000. Again, the dealer can give you that in advance. Same rules. Single, you can't make over 150. Married, you can't make over 300,000. One of the secrets that seemed to happen in the latter half of 2024 is a lot of people, when they were buying electric vehicles, said, I don't want to buy the battery. I'd rather lease the battery. But what happened with the pricing is lease vehicles became real popular. So to own a Kia electric vehicle, your payments were coming out to be about $700 a month. But if you lease it, your payments were coming out to be $400 a month. much more affordable. And the primary reason for it, if I buy the Kia, the parts were not sourced in North America. So therefore it didn't qualify for the $7,500 credit. But a little kind of niche of the law says if it's leased, it's considered a commercial vehicle. Therefore, it qualifies for the credit. And so there's some amazing, if you're considering it, I saw the Audi, that might have expired, the Audi Q5, but you could lease it for like $399 a month with $7,000 down. I'm not pushing Audis or anything, but it's very competitive now. And if you're considering it, talk to your dealer, see what he or she says, to do it. And another thing I like about it is I never thought electric vehicles. I own 3 cars. Not one of them was made this century. So that tells you what I drive. But in 5 years, 6 years, 4 years, 3 years, who knows where the technology will be. So I don't mind letting the leasing company have the risk of that depreciation in my electric vehicle rather than me. I think it's kind of a good buy. Do you guys remember? I remember my mom, when the Tauruses were real popular in the late 80s, the Ford Taurus. I always thought that they had all those egg shapes all through it, real popular. And Ford Leasing made a big bet, or the banks made a big bet on how much it was going to be worth at the end. It did not come true. And so the banks lost a fortune because they said, oh, the Tauruses will be worth $10,000 at the end of the lease. You couldn't even get 7 or 6 for it. Wasn't your problem. You just turned in the car. Many people during COVID had lease vehicles. Price of used vehicles went way up. So they were buying out their lease and making 10, 15 grand on them. So, I'm not an investor I don't think a car is an investment. So I kind of like whatever is the least expensive way to drive. One of the big changes in the law were retirement contributions. I don't know if is anybody in this room still working or self-employed? So if you're self-employed, it's amazing what you can contribute to a 401k now. If you're over 60, if you're over 55, you can put up to $31,000 into your 401k. I'm self-employed. I can put up to $30,000 into my solo 401k, and then I can put another 20% of whatever I make into my SEP. It's amazingly powerful. Many employers offer a lot of matching and a lot of other bonuses in that area. It's worth understanding those, talking to your financial advisor or your HR department and understanding it. For me, my youngest daughter, Sarah, who you saw a picture of me skiing with, she works for Caltrans right now as a what is her title? Biologist. And, I'm always harping on her because she doesn't care. How much are you putting in? Are you maxing it? Is California giving you the maximum benefit? Go away, Dad, is her response to me. But really worth looking into. And another key here, well, let's see, I think I have a slide on it, is for many of us, I'm 5 years away from it, RMDs become, mandatory to take out your prior minimum distribution. And for many of us, if, depending what our stuff is invested in, our IRAs and our 401ks are our most valuable asset. I mean, they're really valuable. So you really got to keep your eye on it. So if I turn 73 my birthday's in January. If I turn 73 in January, this month, I have until April of next year to make my first RMD. Now, if I wait till 2026 to do that, I'll have to do 2 RMDs, but at least you don't have to, so you can time it, you can watch the rates, you see how it affects other things. If your medical expenses increased in 2025, you may want to delay that RMD so you can deduct more of it. You can tweak how much you want to take out, but the law right now, it did increase. It used to be, what was the old law? 71. It is up to 73 for RMD. So that ain't a bad deal. inherited IRAs. I'm not married, although I do have a partner for 15 years. I'm not married. And when my kids get my IRAs, if I don't spend all the money, which I kind of hope I do, but if I don't spend all the money in my IRA, and my kids inherit it, they'll have 10 years to take it out. There was a lot of interpretation of what that means. If my child inherits $500,000 from me, does that mean they can skip taking it out and for 9 years and then in year 10 take out all $500,000? Well, that was one of the interpretations. What the IRS came back with is said, no, my daughter has to take out the equivalent of her required minimum distribution, which is over her lifespan. And so you have to do it. My daughter would have to do at least that in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then, take out the balance by year 10. One of the other tricks with RMD is if your spouse inherits your IRA, there is no, there is no 10-year rule. She goes on her own RMD rule. One other cool trick. So timing is really special with the RMDs, and really, give me a call or talk to your investment advisor about how to time that RMD. Another cool tool we can use is, for me, almost all of my retirement money is in regular IRAs, which means I was never taxed on any of that money I put in. As a matter of fact, I got to lower my income for all the money I put in. If I have a low income year or some event that happens that brings my income down a little bit, it's really good to look at, hey, is it a good time to convert to a Roth IRA? I used to believe it's never worth converting to a Roth IRA if you're paying more than 0%. But you know what? If I can convert, say, $50,000 at the lowest rate, say 10 or 15%, those might be rates we'll never see again. Maybe it's worth looking into. So really pay attention, look at where your income is that year or where your expenses are that year, and see if you can convert it. If it's worth your time to convert some to a Roth IRA. Some other things that Mr. Trump promised, we don't know what it means. Tip income. He promised that that restaurant and hotel workers or anybody whose income is derived from tips would not have to pay tax on those tips. My thoughts were, well, why don't I bill all my clients $100 for doing their tax return, and then you can tip me what you think is appropriate. I would wager dollars to donuts. We're going to see that, but we'll see how the law is written. Can the country afford tip income? Getting rid of the tax on tips. I don't know. For myself, when I go to a restaurant, I always, I charge almost all my meals. I always tip zero and give the service person cash and let them decide if they're going to report it. As a tax guy, I tell everyone to report all their income. But there you go. Trump is a real estate guy. We don't know what he's going to do with real estate. We saw what he did. The law definitely favors real estate owners. That 20% QBI we discussed earlier. The depreciation rules. There's a lot of value to owning real estate. 1031 exchanges. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that or not. He hates estate tax, and I don't know where he stands on electric vehicles. But these are things I think we need to watch for and discuss. And I guess if you have any specific questions or any questions on taxes, I'd be glad to try and answer them. Yes. Whoops.
Roth IRA conversions.
Yes.
Do you have to do that while you're still working, or can you do that after?
You can do it anytime.
And do you have to do convert all, or just part?
No, anything you want. So if I'm in a 15% bracket, I can convert $10,000 of my IRA to Roth and I would pay $1,500 on it. Because maybe in 2 or 3 years, when my RMD kicks in, I know I'm going to be in the 20 or 25% bracket. The other beauty of Roths are there's no RMD requirement, and there's no and when your kids inherit, there's no RMD requirement for them. One of the other things I didn't discuss in this to look out for is if you do have an RMD, and I think the law is 70 or 71. If you're usually very charitable, and you can't itemize, consider making your charitable contributions from your Roth. Excuse me, from your regular IRA. Your charity benefits really well, and
Vivillon can help with that.
there you go, and it helps Vivillon, and therefore you'll still get that standard deduction of $14,800, and you don't have to worry about the RMD. It eats up your RMD, which is a great deal.
You inherit an IRA, and let's say it's worth $100,000, and then you invest it, and it increases in value. When that 10-year period, is it over the entire value? So each year they kind of look at it and say, okay, to pay it off in 10 years, you have to take this much.
So for 2025, they're going to look back at what my balance was on December 31st, 2024, and that would be my RMD will be computed on that, and I think my lifespan is 26.4 more years. So they would take that balance, divide it by 26.4, and that would be my required minimum distribution. For 2024, if you inherited an IRA in 2024, there is no RMD on inherited IRAs. They just got that. The law was so confusing. Congress or the IRS said, we aren't going to bother with it. Don't worry about it. We'll start the RMD rules for inherited IRAs in 2025.
Yes, I have a question on inherited real estate property and property taxes.
Okay. Oh, do you want to know how it works? So I didn't bring it up. Inherited real estate is wonderful. If you have a piece of real estate that's income property, a rental, it gets a step up in basis. So if you're sitting on a house, an income property that you paid $80,000 for, that's now worth $1 million. When your heirs inherit it, their basis is now $1 million. So when they sell it, no gain, likely a loss. On your personal residence with property taxes, if your child moves into the house within, I wanted to say 2 years, it has to be your child, then their real estate taxes don't go up. So that's very valuable. On income property, if I inherit a piece of income property, that will definitely get a step up. That's going to, real estate taxes will definitely go up on that. That was Prop, the one we just passed 2 years ago, 95, I think. Thank you, Prop 19. And one of the beauties of that is if we're over 55, we can buy a home anywhere in California and bring our basis with us 5 times. That's the beauty of the law. The negative of the law is if you guys move up to Oregon to be with your daughter, forget it. I think you had a different question though.
Well, actually, I think I had someone telling me stuff. We didn't know what they were talking about. Not you, but someone else. They told me that, no, that's out the window. The kid doesn't get to have the house they're getting rid of that.
No. That's still law. We got to be careful if we have a trust. I have 3 kids, and my intention is to leave a third of my house to each of my 3 kids if I don't sell my house. So therefore, none of my kids will be able to move into that house and claim it. But what you do is you give one child the right of first refusal, and you give each child the right of refusal. So therefore, say only my son wants to live in the house, and the other, my 2 daughters want to just say buy us out. Then my son can move in and get my real estate my my property tax basis, which is back, was computed in 1990 when I bought the house.
Does that apply to a wife?
Well, if my son, I hope he gets married. If my son was married, yes. Oh, your wife keeps your basis. It depends how you hold property. California presumes everything's community property. Another thing that I didn't bring up is that with that estate tax exception, 12.6 million right now, if you're married and the guy's usually the first one to die, I die, my spouse can take my exemption. And now she has a $25.2 million exemption for her estate tax. And I would not have, and my estate would not have to file return. There's portability with the estate tax exemption as of the law today. What it will be in the future, I don't know. But real estate, the step up in basis is really valuable. There are some unsavory investment brokers out there who take a look at your portfolio and say, why the hell do you have all this Microsoft stock? Well, if you're 95 to 100 years old, don't sell your Microsoft stock. If your kid's going to get it, it's going to get stepped up as soon as he or she inherits it. Very valuable. That step up in basis is gorgeous. I don't know if you remember, in 2010, the step up rules changed. George Steinbrenner died, and the Yankees went to his kids. That was 2010 was the year of zero estate tax. So none of his Yankees interest was taxed, but they did not get a step up in the basis of the Yankees. They ended up with George's basis in the Yankees. Now we all get a step up. So that's valuable.
It says if you have questions later.
I left my cards in back. I would welcome a call. I don't charge anything to talk to you. So, I welcome questions. Tax laws are confusing, and, hold on to your seatbelts. We'll see what happens.
Well, maybe we'll need to have you come back when we have.
I would love that opportunity. Well, when we see some laws, it's so amazing what's going on.